So, before you watch this episode, you really have to watch a game show that the British put on, and it is called Golden Balls. I know. It's an interesting name, but they've got these little golden balls that you open up and you get to see what's inside. You could also call it split or steal, which is the main drama that they get out of the game. And so, before you do this part, you really have to watch those 3 videos on Golden Balls, Split or Steal, which is on Google Classroom under Classwork, Chapter 7. And you take a look there under the videos for the chapter, and down at the bottom you'll find 3 episodes. They're like 5 minutes each. And if you watch that, you will then understand a lot more about game theory and how all kinds of games are played in the world. Some are pretty serious, like nuclear war. You know? If you've seen the movie with Matthew Broderick, I think it's called War Games, you know? They ask the computer, do you want to play a game? And that's what's happening. It's game theory, okay? So to try and understand this, make sure you watch those videos first. All right. So after you've watched those videos, we need to take a look at what's going on here. In this game show, Golden Balls, you've got 2 choices. You can steal the money, or you can split with the other person, or not steal. You know, you're going to split it or not steal. And the rules of the game, they'll tell you each time, so you should know by now, but if both people pick steal, both people go away with nothing. If one of you picks steal and one of you picks not steal, then, of course, you get all of it if you pick steal, or all of it, you know, for person A if they pick steal. If you both pick not steal, if you pick split, then you both walk away with 50%. Now, you would say to yourself, well, this is easy, right? I mean, obviously, they should just both pick split. They should just not steal it, and they walk away with 50-50. That's totally fair. But that's not how humans do this. And you shouldn't jump to the conclusion necessarily that it's because they're evil. Okay? What they're doing is a cost-benefit analysis, looking at the trade-offs and the probabilities between those, and making a decision based on that. So we like to assign morality to these types of choices. You know, when we're looking at CEOs of businesses taking big bonuses, or why would this country go to war, you know, usually we ascribe moral benefits, and oftentimes that's not the case. All right, so let's see how this works. If person A has to choose between steal or not steal, they're looking at these 2 numbers right here, 0 and 0. Well, if the 2 numbers are 0, then there's no advantage to choosing either of these. So really what they're doing is they're looking at, well, what if the other person chooses not steal? Well, then person A could get 100% of the money, or 50% of the money. So if they look at these 2, there's no dominant strategy here because they're both zeros. Over here, there is a dominant strategy. 100% is better than 50%, so person A should choose steal. Now, in order to get it, though, they have to make sure the other person chooses not steal. So they've already made up their mind. They're going to steal. Now the whole game is just to convince the other person not to steal. So what you see is the contestants go back and forth with all this reassurance and soft voices. Oh, I would never steal from you. Oh, my friends would totally be upset with me. Oh, it's so bad to steal. I would never steal. I mean, I just go on and on like this, all right? And so sometimes people believe it. So in the first video, you're going to see there where the limiting factor is actually the person says, I'm not going to steal. I think the younger lady on the right says, I'm just never going to steal. Because of my morality, this option is off the table. So she's already told the other person she's not going to do this. So what is person B going to do? If they can't analyze these, then person B says, well, steal or not steal is 100 to 50. Well, then I'm going to choose this one. Okay? So in the first one, a lot of people like to say, "Oh, the older lady was so mean. She was so evil. Did you see her face? She was so evil." And that's sort of the reaction you have when you go away with that. But it's really not the case. You know, she might be evil. I don't know. But clearly, if this is off the table because you say you're not going to steal, well then, if these are the only two choices the other person has, they're going to steal. All right? So that's what's going on there. In the second one, you can definitely see that the guy in there is like, "Trust me, I'm never going to steal from you. All the people would be so mad at me, you know, they just come out here and lynch me." You know, and he's saying those kind of things, and what has he done? Well, he's taken this off the table again. See, this is not how to play the game. And so what they're doing is they're thinking about stealing, but they're trying to convince the other person not to steal. If they can put the other person in the not steal category, then this person can either steal and get 100% or at least get 50%. All right? So they're either setting the other person up so that they can steal, or they're being irrational about their decision making and they're just settling for this right off. Because everyone thinks that this is the goal of the game. And it is, but not the route you think it should be. So what happens is in the third one, it says it's the weirdest split or steal ever. It's because the guy is a stockbroker, he's a financial analyst, and he understands game theory, and he understands what this is. And so what he does is he says to his partner, his friend Abraham there, he says, "I'm going to absolutely steal. I'm absolutely going to steal." He doesn't take steal off the table. He says, this is all there is. He takes not steal off the table. Okay? He says, look, either we're going home with nothing, or I'm getting all of it and I'll split it with you in the parking lot. So you either give me everything and I'll split it with you. There's a chance of that. I could lie, I could take it all, but there's a chance I could do that. Or if you pick steal, I'm 100% picking steal. We're just walking out of here with nothing. So we both lose everything, or you might get something. See the payoff of that now? See, this stuff, that's all out the window. He's trying to convince the person that he will absolutely steal. And so now the payoff matrix for his friend Abraham is not all of these options. It's just these two top options. So Abraham looks at that and he says, okay, well, if I pick steal, I'm losing. And if I pick not steal, I'm also losing, but there's a chance he might split it with me in the parking lot. So here we've got 0 and 0, which is not a dominant strategy, but because of the promise of splitting in the parking lot, this is maybe, we've almost put like a question mark here, that they might actually get something. And so a for sure 0, he's not going to choose that. He's going to have to choose not steal in the hopes of getting something. Now, once the original player A does this and pushes this choice on his friend, instead of allowing these options, these disappear from the game, and so it's certain loss and possible gain. That becomes then the right strategy to pick. And so person B in this last one picks not steal. Now, because you've absolutely convinced them that these are their choices, person A is now free to also choose not steal with some relative certainty that the other person is going to choose not steal, and that actually ends up here. So most of the time in this game, people end up here or they end up here because they both try and play the game of not steal. But what the third person does, he says, I'm absolutely going to steal. And then it takes away these things from the payoff matrix and only leaves the top options, giving him then the freedom to select from all of them. And of course, now with relative certainty, you can select not steal, and they can make it 50-50. Okay? Because that was the problem at the beginning of the game. The two previous people were all like, I will never steal from you, I will never steal from you. Well, what they did is they took the steal options off the table, and now they've left the other person with steal and get 100% or not steal and 50%. Well, of course they're going to choose steal, because that's the ultimate dominant strategy in the payoff matrix. You got 50 or you got 100. See how that works? So the reason people do things is rational, okay? But sometimes they start from an irrational proposition. I won't steal from you. And you'd think morally that's the right choice. But actually, in this game theory scenario, the right choice is to absolutely convince the person you're going to steal, and you're going to come out hard from the get-go and say, I'm going to steal this from you. I don't care what it means. I'm going home with nothing, but I'm going to steal one way or another, so you better make your choice to not steal. And that's the kind of attitude that you have to put the person into this corner, into not steal category, so you can then select not steal, and you can both win. What you should take away from this is that this is what prevented nuclear war during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. When I was growing up, people were freaking out about nuclear war, okay? Because we had 10,000 nuclear missiles pointed at Russia, and they had 8,000 or 9,000 pointed at us. It was certain death. Most people predicted we'd have a nuclear winter. We wouldn't even get sunshine for 3 years. I mean, most of the planet would die. Okay? And so it was pretty fearful. I mean, there was all these songs, 99 Left to Balloons out of Germany was the #1 hit about balloons going up and people thinking it was a missile launch. Sting and the Police, I think, wrote a song called The Russians. I hope they love their children too. You know, all of these things were about good feelings. We can't steal. We don't want to shoot missiles. Please don't shoot missiles. You know, that kind of thing. And that's actually the wrong tactic to take. So you'll notice that the leaders, Ronald Reagan, Soviet Union's an evil empire and we're going to send nukes after them if they try anything with us. And everyone's like, oh, we're going to die. Okay? And, you know, Khrushchev and Brezhnev, and they're all pounding their fists on the table at the UN. He's like, if the United States wants to launch missiles, we'll launch more back. And both sides felt like it was just ratcheting up the anger. But what were both sides doing? The leaders were both making it abundantly clear that if there was any kind of problem with a nuclear launch, we're launching too. They were trying to make this scenario as palpably understood as possible. Like, do you get it? There is no getting away from the idea that you can win a nuclear war because we'll launch ours too. And because of that, both sides threatened this, which scared the heck out of the public, but then freed themselves up as leaders to say, look, if they launch, we're not going to launch because that's the end of the human race. If they want to win, fine. But behind the scenes, they were always choosing not steal, not launch, okay? And so they were trying to push very hard to say, we'll do this if, and so your payoff is 0 or 50. And so both sides looked at that and said 50. And that's why the Soviet Union and the United States never exchanged nuclear bombs, and pretty much were never going to exchange nuclear bombs. We actually live in a far more dangerous world for nuclear bombs now, in a decentralized system, possibly with terrorists. Who exactly are you talking to? A terrorist might say, hey, I could get away with this because they don't know who I am or where I came from. Or they might say, you know, it's worth it because I don't care about my own country. I'm just going to launch a nuke on someone. Okay? So actually, we're in a far more dangerous situation now than we ever were in the Cold War. Although the Cold War is pointed to as one of the most dangerous situations because of all the rhetoric and all the stuff that came out on the news about it. But that was all talk just to get people to look at this is the payoff versus this and move people into this category to make sure that no one ever thought it was somehow I could get away with it. I could launch and they won't and will win. And both sides never wanted to be in these categories, so they made it abundantly clear it's this or it's that. Okay? So that's how game theory relates to all kinds of different things, whether it's business, whether it's nuclear war, whether it's a game show, whether it's relationships. Oh, okay. All these kind of things involve these payoff matrices, and that's game theory. Thanks.